In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to implement FindIndex in C# procedurally, meaning from scratch. This is Daniel, and you are going to get coded. Here I have Visual Studio opened, and we need to create a new console application. So we go to File, New, and Project. Here under Visual C# Windows Desktop, we have Console App, and I'm going to name this FindIndex and hit OK. While this is loading, I have here a link opened. And this is not FindIndex. Did I say FindIndex? Yes. And I have a link open. You can find the link in the description down below. So let's find the index of an item based on a condition. So we have a fruits array. And this fruits array has 4 fruits: apple, cherry, pineapple, and plum. And we have an index, which is set to -1. So the default, in our case, the initial value that we want the index to have is -1. So this is the starting point. We assume that there is no such item. There is no such item that contains, that applies this condition, that contains the letter L. We assume that this is the case. Then we have a for loop, and we iterate over the array using an I variable. This I goes from 0 to fruits.length. And on each step, we increment the I and we check if the I is still less than fruits.length. In our case, fruits has 4 items, so fruits.length is 4. So this is the actual size, is 4. Once I gets 4, 4 is not less than 4, 4 is equal to 4, and this is false. And we are going to exit the for loop, and we continue on with printing the index. But let's see what we have inside the for loop. So we have an if statement. So we are trying to see if the actual item that we are iterating over contains the letter L. If it does, we are going to save that index, and we are going to break it, to break the for loop. The meaning of the break here is that we don't want to continue on the execution. Once we find an item in our fruits array, we don't want to continue on with the execution. It doesn't make sense because we want the first occurrence of that specific item. In our case, apple is the first item that has that contains the letter L, and the index is going to be 0 because the index of apple is 0. So indeed, we are going to print 0 to the console. So let's see this in action. Let's try to write those things over here. So var fruits, new square brackets, and we have apple, cherry, pineapple, and plum. And you can have anything you want here, as you know, and any type you want. Right now the type of the array is string, but you can have integers, objects, even arrays, anything you want. And var index equals -1. So the initial, as I said, the initial value for index is -1. And if we hover over var, you can see that this is an integer indeed. So the compiler infers that this is an integer. Indexes in C# should be must be integers. So we need a for loop for tab fruits.length, enter, and we are going to say if the current item that we are iterating over, fruits I, contains the letter L. So if this item contains the letter L, this is the condition that we want. We have index equal I and break, and we are going to break the execution. And let's say CW tab, and we are going to print out the index, the specific index. And also we need console.read key. This will keep the console from not closing. So let's press F5 and see what we get. And as normal, this is, what have I done? I've done something, I don't know what. Okay, 0. So the item is 0. Let's try to zoom in a little bit because this is way too small. So the index indeed is 0. Why? Because the first item that satisfies this specific condition over here is the apple. Let's try to change the condition to something else so that you can see this works for something else. So let's try to say that contains app, or let's try something else. So pi. So we are trying to find this one, and let's try to press F5, and you can see right now we have index 2. So apple is 0, cherry is 1, and pineapple is 2. So that's why we have index 2 over here. Let's try to use the debugger and see what we get. So we can set a breakpoint in the for loop. If you don't know what a breakpoint is, this breaks the execution of a C# application until at this line, at this specific line over here, and we no longer continue until we press something, until we step into or step over that specific breakpoint. So let's try to press F5 and let's see what we have. I'm going to pull this a little bit to the left and let's see the values. So in the locals window, you can see the fruits array. We have apple, cherry, pineapple, plum, and then index. The index is -1 and the I is 0. So let's try to press F11 to see the results. So the I is 0 indeed, and this was true. 0 is less than 4. If this item contains pi, so right now the first item is apple, apple doesn't contain pi, so we are going to jump over the statement. Then the I gets 1. So if I press F11, you can see that right now we have 1. Does this contain pi, cherry? Does cherry contain pi? No, it doesn't. We jump over this. Then I is 2. So right now we look at the pineapple. The pineapple contains pi. Yes, it does. And this was true. And we are going to assign the I, the current index, the index of the pineapple, to the index. So right now the index is 2. So it's changed from -1 to 2. And we break the execution if we press F11, because we don't want to continue on. And if we press F11 again, we have 2 written out to the console. And this is how this works. So to summarize, we need an index set to -1. So this is the initial value. We assume that there is no item. If we put 0 here instead of -1, maybe it was the apple, you know, and we would get the first item all the time. That's why we put -1 here. We put -1 because in no case the index can be -1. It can be 0, it can be 1, it can be 2000, but it cannot be -1. So we cannot have a negative index for this fruits array. That's why we put -1. Okay, and we have a condition over here. If this condition is fulfilled by that specific item that we are looping over, then we are going to save the index in this index local variable, and then we are going to break the execution, and we are just printing out to the console that specific index. In our case, we are going to print 2 because it is the third item in our fruits array. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please click thumbs up. Also consider subscribing. Until next time, bye guys.